Starved for justice, food as punishment in U.S. jails. Subscribe for more real crime stories. Like, share, and join the discussion below. The smell hit first, sour, spoiled, and heavy, like something that had been dead for days. Marcus sat on the edge of his metal bed, staring at the gray plastic tray that had just slid through the slot in his cell door. The meal was nothing more than 2 slices of dry bread and a small scoop of what looked like cat food. His stomach groaned, but he couldn't bring himself to touch it. He'd gone 2 days without a real meal. His head spun, his lips were cracked, and his hands trembled as he reached for the tray. The guard outside smirked and said, "Maybe you'll learn to keep quiet next time." Marcus pressed his back against the cold wall. He was starving, not by accident, but by design. Food had become a weapon in Stonebridge County Jail, a way to punish anyone who spoke out or complained. He had filed a grievance the week before, reporting that guards were serving moldy meat. Now he was being taught a lesson. Every bite was pain. Every hour without food felt like a slow, invisible beating. On the 3rd day, something inside Marcus snapped. As he pushed the tray away, his vision blurred. He tried to call out, but his voice was weak. He slid from the bed and hit the floor with a dull thud. Outside, the guard laughed, but only for a moment. Marcus didn't move. His hand twitched once, then went still. The guard froze. For the first time, he looked scared. The radio crackled. "We've got a man down in cell block D." But by the time help arrived, it might already be too late. 3 weeks earlier, Marcus Hill wasn't a bad man. He was 29, a warehouse worker from Indiana who'd made one terrible mistake, a bar fight that landed him behind bars for 6 months. He thought jail would be rough, but nothing prepared him for what he found inside. The moment he walked into Stonebridge County Jail, he noticed the smell, a mix of bleach, sweat, and spoiled food. The cafeteria line was silent, except for the clang of metal trays. The first few meals weren't bad, just bland. But soon he started noticing something strange. The food was cold. Sometimes his tray came with half the items missing. Other inmates whispered about starvation punishment, a quiet system used by guards to keep order. If you talked back or filed a complaint, your food would disappear. One night, Marcus saw an older inmate, Reggie, being dragged out of his cell. He said the stew had maggots, someone whispered. Now they'll starve him for a week. Marcus didn't believe it until it happened to him. The next morning, his tray didn't come. Then again that night. His stomach burned, and he pounded on the door. "I didn't do anything," he yelled. The guard looked through the small window and smiled. That's the point. Marcus's knees buckled as hunger clawed at him. He knew he had to find a way to survive, or expose what was happening before it was too late. But the more he pushed for answers, the darker the truth became. That's when he found the hidden note under his mattress, one that said, "You're not the first. Don't let them break you." He didn't know it yet, but those words would lead him to something far more dangerous than hunger itself. Marcus stared at the note under the dim yellow light of his cell. The handwriting was shaky, almost desperate. He flipped it over. Another message was scrawled on the back. "The kitchen keeps records. Look for the blue folder." His heart started to race. Who had written it? Was someone watching him? For the first time in days, his hunger faded behind a new feeling, curiosity mixed with fear. He knew snooping around could get him in trouble, but he couldn't ignore it. Something was happening behind those metal doors, something darker than bad food. The next morning, when the guard slid in his tray, Marcus forced a weak smile. "Thanks, man," he said, pretending to be grateful. The guard grunted and walked off. Marcus hid a piece of bread in his pocket, not to eat, but to use later. At lunchtime, Marcus got his chance. The kitchen crew, made up of inmates, passed his cell. One of them, a tall man with sharp eyes named Tyler, glanced at Marcus and nodded slightly. Marcus whispered, "Blue folder. You know anything about it?" Tyler froze for a second, then pretended not to hear. But as he pushed his card away, he dropped a folded napkin on the floor. When the guards left, Marcus reached under the door and pulled it closer. Inside was a single line storage room. Midnight. No sound. That night, Marcus waited, counting every tick of the clock. The air was cold, and the halls were silent except for distant footsteps. When the lights dimmed for lockdown, he slid out of his bunk and crept toward the kitchen area. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might give him away. Tyler was waiting near the back door. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "They'll lock you in the hole if they catch you." "I need to see it," Marcus said, his voice trembling. "The folder." Tyler hesitated, then led him into the kitchen. The smell hit him again. Old grease, spoiled milk, and something rotten. The walls were stained yellow, and flies buzzed around the trash bins. They slipped into a small storage room behind the freezer. On a dusty shelf sat a stack of old binders. Tyler pointed. "Blue one. Bottom." Marcus pulled it out. The label read "Food Supply Logs. Confidential." He opened it, and what he saw made his stomach twist. The log sheets listed shipments of spoiled meat, expired milk, and nutrient bars labeled for animal use only. Next to the entries were signatures, from the warden himself. "They're feeding us garbage," Marcus whispered. "They know it." Tyler nodded. "It's cheaper that way. They pocket the rest of the food budget." A sudden noise cut through the silence, the clink of keys. Someone was coming. Tyler's eyes widened. "Hide." Marcus ducked behind the shelf, clutching the folder tight. The door creaked open. A flashlight beam swept across the room. The guard's voice was low, but sharp. "I know someone's in here." Tyler tried to cover. "Just cleaning up, boss." "Middle of the night," the guard snapped. Marcus held his breath as the light drew closer. Then a thud. The guard's boot hit the folder Marcus had dropped. The flashlight paused on the blue cover. The guard bent down, his hand reaching for it. Marcus's mind raced. If he was caught now, he'd never make it out alive. The beam of the flashlight froze on the blue folder, and Marcus felt his chest tighten. One wrong move, and it would all be over. The guard crouched down, squinting at the binder, his hand inches from it. Then Tyler coughed loudly and kicked a nearby bucket. The sound echoed through the small room. "Sorry, boss," Tyler said, forcing a nervous laugh. "Didn't mean to wake you. Just trying to keep things clean. The smell's been bad lately." The guard grunted, glaring at him. "You better not be stealing scraps again." Tyler shook his head quickly.
"No, sir."
"Just tossing out the trash." After a tense few seconds, the guard's light swept the room one last time. Then he turned and walked out, locking the door behind him. The sound of his boots faded down the hallway. Marcus stayed frozen, his heart hammering in his ears. When the silence returned, Tyler turned toward him, whispering harshly, "You're insane. You almost got us both thrown in the hole." Marcus picked up the folder, his hands shaking. "We can't stop now. People are dying in here." Tyler stared at him for a moment, then sighed. "If you want this out, there's only one person who can help. Officer Ray. He used to be a good man before all this. Maybe he still is." They slipped back into the shadows, making their way to the guard's wing. The corridors were quiet except for the faint buzz of flickering lights. Every creak of their footsteps sounded too loud. Finally, they reached Ray's office. The door was cracked open. Inside, the middle-aged officer sat at his desk, his head in his hands. Marcus stepped inside. "Officer Ray, I know what they're doing. You can't pretend you don't." Ray looked up, startled. "Hill, how did you?" Marcus slid the blue folder across the desk. "They're starving us on purpose. You've seen it. You've heard the complaints." Ray hesitated, then opened the folder. As he flipped through the pages, his expression darkened. "I tried to report this months ago," he whispered. "The warden shut it down. Said if I spoke again, I'd lose my pension." "People are going to die," Marcus said softly. "I almost did." For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the ceiling fan. Then Ray nodded. "All right. I'll make copies. I'll get this to someone on the outside." But before he could stand, a loud alarm shattered the silence. Red lights flashed. A voice blared over the intercom. "Unauthorized inmates in the administrative wing. Lockdown. Lockdown." Tyler cursed under his breath. "They know." Ray's face went pale.
Go. Now.
Back to your cell. If they catch you here, it's over. Marcus hesitated. What about the folder? I'll take care of it, Ray said, his voice low. Now move. Marcus and Tyler ran down the hall as guards flooded in from every direction. The air filled with shouts and the clanging of doors. Marcus's legs burned as he sprinted through the dim corridors, the red lights flashing like warning signs. They slipped through a maintenance door and back into the kitchen. Marcus collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. Tyler leaned beside him, sweat dripping down his face. You think he'll really do it? He asked. Marcus looked toward the ceiling, where the alarm still screamed. He has to, he said. It's our only chance. Days passed. The tension in the jail grew thicker. Whispers spread among inmates, rumors of an investigation, of someone on the outside asking questions. Marcus waited, half-starved and half-hopeful. Then one morning, everything changed. The guards burst into the block, pulling inmates out one by one. Marcus braced himself, thinking it was another punishment round. But instead, a new voice echoed down the corridor. Federal inspection. Everyone step aside. A team of men in suits and badges walked in. Cameras followed. One of them carried a folder, blue, worn, and very familiar. Marcus met Tyler's eyes through the bars. Neither said a word. They didn't have to. As the investigators moved deeper into the jail, the warden shouted orders, trying to cover his tracks. But it was too late. The truth was out. The starvation, the lies, the cruelty disguised as punishment. For the first time in months, Marcus felt something warm in his chest. Hope. And as he watched the officers carry boxes of files out of the building, he whispered to himself, they thought they could starve us into silence. But you can't starve justice. Outside, the morning sun cut through the bars, lighting up the cell in a soft blue glow, like freedom was finally finding its way in.